Hi, hello everybody, 大家好. And so this seems to be recording already. I usually don't do videos because I really like doing videos, so I would spend a lot of time preparing for them and I would devote too much time to them. But I just thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of change formats for a while, to change a platform for once. And if you are here, it's probably because you know already about this project. You might have seen that yesterday, and I was invited by a Spanish YouTuber to talk on her channel on live stream about my project of collecting cute things, kawaii things around Taiwan. And so what I did was explaining in Spanish, of course, and why is everything in Taiwan so cute and how there are hidden layers behind and under, more than under than behind, under what we perceive just to be a part of a consumerism, part of a thing of marketing and consumerism of looking for things that could be easily seen by other people and that would help sell a product. So what I did on that and live stream yesterday with her was showing different reasons on how actually it's not only the capitalist part of kawaiiness and cuteness that makes and Taiwan especially cute, but how there are all the sections, all the types of cuteness that intertwine and make Taiwan this kind of what they call the island of Sajiao, which is a term referring to this kind of very childish attitude, this kind of attitude of a children that keeps looking for attention, which is connected at the same time. It's kind of the attitude that is surrounding and kawaiiness and cuteness in Taiwan. So, and this is gonna be more or less a light version of what I did yesterday. A shorter version depends on how much I get carried by the topic. And so let's jump right into it. What I did was translating the same slides that I had yesterday on that live stream. So at the same time, if I need it in the future, so actually it turns out I was more like a practice for research to see the points that I might need to talk about this in the future. So it turned out really well. So I really liked the presentation. But sadly yesterday when I was in the live stream, my microphone wasn't activated, so actually the English version is gonna be of better quality than the Spanish version actually. So let's jump right into it. So I started with this image of some of you who might have lived in Taiwan already might know these two. These are the chibi policemen, as I call them, or the mini policemen. And so the first question is, where do you think would you find these two policemen? Many people would think you would find them and perhaps in an advertisement, some kind of just the Children's Day advertisement from the police department. But no, it turns out these are from a surveillance camera that you can find all around Taipei, and that the message they are telling you on those boxes that are placed on the light poles of Taipei is that we worry about you. Sorry if we intrude in your privacy. And there's this concept that is used very frequently when blending kawaiiness, cuteness with the institutions in Taiwan, which is 关心你, which is we worry about you, like Taipei, the Taipei Police Department 关心你, worries about you. So sorry if we intrude in your privacy, and let us make this approach, this invasion of your privacy softer by using these cute policemen, right? And what is the project I'm talking about? This project, which is called台可爱, and which is a way of having a connection to what would be very cute, 太可爱, very cute, but changing the word Thai, which can mean to or very in Chinese, for the Thai that refers to Taiwan, right? And so this project of collecting cuteness in Taiwan is mostly focused on me going around the streets, mostly even only on my neighborhood, and taking photos of how cuteness is used by institutions, by companies, by advertisement, or how the objects in itself seem weird to a foreigner like me, a foreigner here in Taiwan, in the usage of cuteness and everywhere, ubiquitous in Taiwan. So these are just some of the basic examples. If you have been following the account, you might have seen these already. These are kind of miscellaneous examples of use of cuteness in Taiwan. For example, the chibi policeman, or this Durigong here, which is a god, and this is actually for my neighborhood. These mini buses, cute buses with an animal ears that I found in Taichung. And this, which is a very current saga, I call them saga, and of characters that are used by one specific company and of public transport in Taiwan. These are some more examples that might make you see how much cuteness is embedded also in the different ministries and departments and the serious part as well of Taiwan. And especially when trying to make a softer image of policemen or the military. So what are the reasons that leads Taiwan to use cute things so much? When a tourist comes here and keeps seeing cute things everywhere, why is society so used to this, right? There are many ways of tackling this phenomenon. And the most simple one that everybody can think about is consumerism, of course. First, related to studies about kawaii in Japan, for example, associate this to the rise in salaries and the rise of the worker class in among women, right, of labor women, that now. Well, not now, but like in the 70s and the 80s, they started having their own salaries and their own financial power to invest in the kind of things they liked. So that was kind of the first level, the first burst of kawaii-ness starting in Japan. And that's the kind of kawaii-ness that was first imported into Taiwan, of course, because a lot of the popular culture, perhaps most of the popular culture in Taiwan, is heavily influenced by what happens and comes from Japan. And it creates, because for geographical reasons and also for diplomatic and political reasons, and Taiwan tends to look a lot towards Japan, and Japan kind of exports its own cultural production to Taiwan. And they create this kind of bubble effect where not too much information goes out. A lot of information goes out, but very few information gets in. So the influences that Taiwan tends to receive tend to be very unilateral from different places, and there tends to be a relation of imbalance in these influences. And of course, there's a very important concept when talking about cuteness in Taiwan, is that it's not only a matter of the object or the images. It's also a matter of the attitude that surrounds it, which is the sajiao, and the attitude of being this kind of spoiled child that wants attention, that tends to be passive aggressive. And especially I use this concept and learned from of this concept from a book about the sajiao, what they call the sajiao generation and identity politics by Sydney. Sorry, I don't remember your name. Sydney Yue should it be, because I'm thinking of her name in the romanization, but I have the references at the end of this presentation. And so what we call this most basic form of kawaii-ness is the commercial cuteness. Some examples of these, most of these are associated to the import of popular culture of Japan, mostly Japan and also Korea, to Taiwan. And this is when it gets a new layer of significance, where you have public figures such as this, which is the mayor of Taipei, Ko Wen-je, and using the Sailor Moon stick, which is connected to the Easy card, which is just a card that you fill it up with money and you use it on the bus as a bus card to have discounts and be more readily accessible. And so he is promoting with this wand, with this stick, and an item of consumption at the same time that he is and promoting public transport. So this is gonna be a very frequent, a very consistent and philosophy in kawaii-ness in Taiwan. And one that I keep seeing is how because of their own economic how to say this, the economic structure, the economic philosophy of Taiwan, the public and the private tend to blend a lot, So you have public figures and public departments and ministries associating themselves with the private world and private companies, and sometimes imitating the strategies, for example, in public communication. That leads us to the second and perhaps the most practical use of cuteness in Taiwan, which is to get the attention of people. So I relate this to what is actually very obvious to many people, is that people are just really tired. The young people in Taiwan are the young and the old are mostly overworked. They work. Taiwan is one of the countries with the longest working hours, and not only that, but the salaries are not that high. So you have this, not only the youth, not only the young generation, but also the old generation tends to be very apathetic in general. It's kind of an attitude that is going on, that has been going on for generations. It's not a new thing. So for example, in the live stream yesterday, we associated this to the tamping culture of China, right? The culture of lying down, that now the current young generation of China is living through that moment, and how sometimes even the internet, the social networks in China, when referring to Taiwan, they would say, well, we are doing tamping now, we are now lying down, but Taiwan has been doing it for ages already. The youth, the young people in Taiwan have already feel defeated with the capitalist world. They have just cannot carry so much pressure, so they have been lying down for years now. They have been on the forefront of this lying down culture. It's also related to how, as people are so tired and need continuous stimulus to have more like a reason to live, and there's a huge problem of phone addiction in Taiwan, right? So you need to focus your strategies a lot on the social networks and a lot on strong images that could catch the attention of people that have been so overstimulated that they are almost immune to many strong and visual elements. So you always have to get a step ahead, and this is how one of the first ways of explaining how cuteness has got. Yes, the microphone's all right. The cuteness is getting more and more extreme and more ubiquitous all around Taiwan, and this also relates to how the government in itself, as many governments in East Asia, and it's a nanny state. It's this kind of state that it's this kind of government that is always watching the people from above and always trying to give recommendations, and what I call the culture of 关心你, the culture of caring about you and always kind of bugging you, giving you recommendations of do this, don't do the other, but it's always in this kind of soft way, right? And this is what I call the institutional cuteness. And the perfect example, what I perceive as a turning point, is 总裁, this dog, the Ministry of Health and Welfare of Taiwan, starting during the COVID-19 pandemic, had the idea of using the dog from the actual dog from the Ministry of Health, and to use it as for marketing purposes, for advertisement purposes, and public communication purposes. And this campaign of using the ministry's dog was so successful that now you keep seeing from time to time different ministers and different departments trying to use also their pets to just get the attention of people. and how this relates to the emergency, to the emergence of a risk communication that tends to be more local. So these are just different examples of zongzhai being used as a cute element, as an element of attention in Taiwanese and institutions. For example, here you have keep 3 Shiba Inus of distance. But sometimes what I emphasized a lot is on yesterday's live stream is that we perceive all this cuteness as a very endearing thing, as a very tender thing that makes you feel so comforting, right? But the thing is, it also has a dark side. It also has a dark turn, because when you realize that when public institutions apply strategies of the private institutions, which is that cute things just sell more and catch more people's attention, you also apply those to serious things when you have to communicate to the public, to the general public, matters of great importance and sometimes of danger. For example, this one, if you read Chinese, you might have realized that it says, and reject people touching you. This is a poster I found in a bus in a university about sexual harassment, and the term in English, the specific term is grumping. I don't use that word very often, but the specific term is grumping. So there is some kind of visual identity. There's some kind of visual clues that keep repeating in this kind of communication. So here you have subtle elements that tell you and kind of code and a specific behavior that the government wants from its citizens. In this case, you have the use of the color green and this kind of long nose, referring to most probably a man touching a woman. The image of the bunny that tends to be more innocent and is just blushing very slightly. But there are more examples that get more and more serious as you keep digging in. This is from a bot from the Ministry of Health and Welfare, which very frequently on his line timeline shares different public communication awareness campaigns, and this one is related to the I guess you would say in English it would be H1N1, the H1N1 aviar flu. So these are suggestions on how to avoid getting infected by the H1N1 and aviar flu. So for example, when you're out, it tells you do not touch the eggs of the bird's nest, do not touch your eyes, and certainly do not touch the birds or get close to them. All right. More examples, because the more you dig in, the darker it gets, and you realize just how impactful these strategies of cuteness can be, and how different public institutions in Taiwan think that they can approach the population more easily this way. This one, for example, I asked the person that was interviewing me if she would dare to see what was the image about. So, would you like to take a guess? I give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It's a poster about an awareness of latent, of hidden tuberculosis. This is related to tuberculosis. So you can get all the details. You have these 2 little organs here crying. You have this pill here with its own shield and its own sword. Here another capsule with his own sword and his own shield. And do you see what's going on here? This is the bacteria of tuberculosis. This is a visual representation of a tuberculosis bacteria sleeping inside your lungs. It has its own pillow, its own smiling face, and its own blanket on him. So you can see how there's sometimes a necessity of making people understand some serious concepts and raising awareness. And there's sometimes when people are so immune to different stimulus in a country that and has so many overworking hours and such a apathetic and a young generation, and that you just need to go to next extremes and can apply this strategy everywhere. So people, because it's kind of the communication that people and expect from you. And just let me check if the recording is going all right. All right, it's going all right. All right, let's keep on. Perfect. So you can see, so this one is about an it's also very common. Once you start using cuteness everywhere, you also apply it to matters of public health awareness, like this one, which is a poster and recommending young people. I found this outside a high school, and not to inhale and laughing gas. I forgot the scientific the chemical name of it now. I think it's here somewhere. Yeah, it's NC2 or N2C. Laughing gas, because it turns out this seems to have been a problem of public health in Taiwan among the young people who would just consume it to be cool, and some years ago, but it was kind of faded. So I don't know if the problem still persists today, but if they did this, it's because there was a reason to do it. So what it tells you, using cuteness again, is how would you be without laughing gas and with laughing gas. This is your life with laughing gas, and how it deteriorates your health, and how you should avoid it. Why should you avoid it? It starts with these cute images, but underneath it, you can see that it actually gives you a kind of scientific explanation. Well, you cannot really see the text. Actually, there's no one. This is kind of also one of the problems that happens frequently with my collection, is that sometimes, and there are not people like me taking photos of everything cute around Taiwan. So, and you see, sometimes posters just exist in the shape of posters. Sometimes there's not a digital version of the things I found around the streets. I was lucky with this one. There exists a digital version when I look up the text, but that's not really the most frequent case. And so you keep getting, especially the reason why I insist so much on the attention part is because it's the most practical use, and it's actually the contrary to what some foreigners might think. I believe this to be the most widespread and the most impactful use of cuteness in Taiwan. So this is about awareness of mental health, and I always, when I see this, emphasize the penguin here. When I saw this penguin, I was like, whoa, what is this? This is actually borderline creepy at the same time. So you have this cute elephant doctor's therapist, but you also have this kind of penguin that not only emphasizes the cute features of it, but you see the penguin suffering, kind of crying at the same time. And also this, especially this image here of the penguin going kind of through a traumatic stage, and this kind of PTSD and sensation. This very same brochure about mental health awareness also had a section with a capybara on an ambulance, telling you if you have any emergency, such as somebody trying to commit suicide, it gives you the number to call them. So you see, it sometimes the cuteness is almost a matter of life and death in Taiwan. And talking about life and death, this is kind of the last example I have about attention and the public institutionality of cuteness. This is from the Taiwan AIDS Foundation, which also got into this game of using cuteness to have a strategy, just to follow the same strategy that everybody else was following. So here you've got all the way to do a plush version, which I actually think this is just an image. I think the plush actually doesn't exist because I haven't been able to find it. This was on the same, just like an image on the brochure, a plush version of the HIV virus. And here what you have, which is actually very, very, very interesting, are different types of syringes with their own different caps on them. Actually, these syringes are part of a very current, very contemporary approach to drug use, and which is called, said this wrong on the live stream yesterday on the live stream I said, and contention, but it's actually mitigation, right? And the fact of that, that people are gonna get injected anyway, and they're gonna do drugs anyway. So what many countries have tried to do is actually to teach people how to inject themselves drugs and easily, in the sense of doing it safely. So what this approach does is teaching you the different types of cups and how can you use it safely and how you can prevent from, and this way it turns out that this way actually you can prevent more deaths and more contagions than if you just keep pushing these kinds of campaigns where you just tell people this is so bad, don't do it, your family is gonna hate it, the whole society is gonna hate you. No, the current approach to drug abuse through injection is telling people how to do it correctly, so you can decrease the number of accidents and the number of undesired results when taking drugs. So you just tell people to take drugs and the correct way to avoid having worse cases. And this one is just a board game about preventing drug abuse. Okay, so actually, I put the Spanish name here. Okay, never mind. So we get to the point where actually my project started, which is the psychogeographical part of it. Psychogeography referring to this kind of the art, not the arts, just like the cumulus, all the sensations that a person feels while it walks around an urban landscape. Let me explain that more clearly. Okay, so psychogeography refers to how the environment affects people, how the environment people live in affects them. So I also associate this to the attention part because there's a section in the use of cuteness in Taiwan that is related on to how it needs to catch the attention on people on the streets. Related again to this apathetic youth that is addicted to the phone and very frequently does not pay attention to the streets. And there have been many cases of people being run over of many accidents just because they were not paying attention. So sometimes you need to organize your city. You need to create a kind of psychogeographical effect of your city being a continuous and series of elements catching people's attention to avoid accidents. So there are many examples of campaigns. This is perhaps one of the campaigns that has received the most budget, and particularly because it's especially a continuous problem in Taiwan. Traffic in Taiwan is not very good at all. So I call this, and it rains more in Taipei than in London. So this is where I get my own theories that perhaps the existence of cuteness and also the use of cuteness very frequently on the streets of Taiwan as well, not only on the virtual realm, is related to the weather, especially of Taipei, which is just the place where most people live in Taiwan, right? The Taipei metropolitan area. Taipei is in a basin, right? Yesterday I remember I couldn't translate the word basin, but in Spanish that's cuenca. Now I remember. Just Taipei is located in a basin, right? And it's surrounded by mountains. So this kind of weather makes Taipei be almost half of the year, about 150 days in Taipei are cloudy. And not only cloudy, they also tend to be rainy and windy. So, on the geographical level, Taipei has this problem of not being a particularly visible city, right? And because of the political situation, and on the 50s, there was a huge influx of refugees coming into Taiwan after the Chinese Civil War, right? So you had to build up so many houses so fast, and the population was growing so fast that created perhaps an almost perennial, an almost permanent issue of urbanism in Taiwan that is very, very hard to resolve. The urbanism in Taipei, the urban planning of Taipei is almost a kind of a disaster. You have a lot of illegal houses, one on top of each other. There's no space for pedestrians almost to walk. And there's also the fact that and the rules of traffic are kind of different to the West. So sometimes when you have a green light, a green traffic light, you think you can cross, but also other cars can cross too. So there's just so many elements that make the traffic and the pedestrian experience in Taiwan really, really, really bad. This is a thing that they need to solve now. It should have been done yesterday already. So you see, this leads to a particular use or abuse of attention elements on the streets of Taiwan, such as, for example, the abuse of LED lights. Taiwan tends to be very gray. They don't really put colors on the buildings, and the buildings are not particularly well looking. They tend to be ugly, and they tend to be not very well maintained. So there's an abuse of LED lights to catch the attention of people. And this is why my project is not only about collecting cute things, but because I also walk around the streets of Taiwan, it's also related to, I also collect LED lights, which is actually hard to collect because it's hard to record LED lights. But sometimes the cute and the LED blend together. But it's almost like a different word, but it's kind of overlapping a bit, right? Some more psychogeographical and explanations. This is kind of more like an easy section of this. It's just kind of the obvious necessity of having public campaigns that can catch people's attention and make them remember traffic rules, such as this very specific one of that said, and avoid the gap between the wheels of large vehicles, for example. Okay, now let me take my water because we're getting into a juicy part here. Alright, so what's going on here? You see, and there's like a third reason on why cuteness is so pervasive, so present in Taiwan everywhere. I relate this to not the final, but more like the comprehensive reason that is related to politics and the identity of Taiwan, and how the necessity to fill a vacuum in Taiwan has allowed cuteness to become what I call patriotic cuteness. And now you see what I'm talking about. Usually the political part of and the identity part of the culture of cuteness in Taiwan tends to be most of the interest of most academician people. For example, there are not many research about cuteness in Taiwan in English, but when they are, most of them, like the two most famous ones, one about the culture of Sajiao, the Sajiao generation, and the other one about this doll here, the Abian doll from Chen Shui-bian. And they focus very much on the identity part of cuteness and the attitude towards it, which actually tends to be contrary to what most people think about cuteness in Taiwan. Tends to be the last thing they expect cuteness to be related to in Taiwan. Alright, so what happens here? Taiwan has a kind of a tiny problem with symbols going on, Taiwan has kind of a problem going on with symbols. The current flag of the Republic of China is one of the most impactful flags you probably will ever see. The combination is just such a winner combination from the visual impact point of view that is so hard to look for a symbol that could represent Taiwan from a non-political perspective, that could unify a Taiwanese identity around something that is not political but at the same time is local. That's actually an objective of many different projects, many different movements that have been rising in Taiwan in this, especially starting to the democratic decades, and of creating a symbol, of creating kind of an unitary way or an unitary object that could, around which Taiwanese, every Taiwanese person, whether it came from the mainland or has mainland background, whether it was already here from Fujian from a long time ago, whether they are indigenous or whether they are of any other origin, could gather together around that symbol. That has actually been an endeavor that has not been possible to carry on in Taiwan. There have been many attempts, and the attempts have this problem that, the Republic of China symbol, the sun with the 12 rays on a blue background with the red, is just such a winner combination in itself from the vexillology point of view that it's so hard to look for a symbol that could represent Taiwan and could catch everybody's attention so easily, right? And there have been some attempts, for example, some projects for Taiwanese independence of declaration of the Republic of Taiwan frequently use Japanese colonial symbols, but you can guess that gets kind of controversial at times, right? And if the symbol you are choosing to represent Taiwan is based on the Japanese colonial period, it's not really that much local Taiwanese, and it perpetuates a cycle of reusing of creating the Taiwanese identity and from the nationhood of other places, right? So hardly this is one of the symbols that has been catching a bit more of attention lately, but still it has not been able to become a powerful symbol of Taiwanese identity. Then you have the second one, which is just the current Taiwanese, most commonly used Taiwanese independence flag. But this has a very, very big problem. Two very big problems. First, the shape of a country is not really a good symbol because it's not really easy to imitate. And they say Taiwan, the shape of the island of Taiwan kind of looks like a sweet potato, and for some people it looks like a cat. So not really the best symbol there. And also, there's the problem of many people finding the use of green being very political in itself, and it is very political. The same way that the Republic of China sun is also very political, and that's why many people don't feel represented by the sun of the Republic of China. But then as well, when you make the contrary to that, the green flag, it also gets political. So you have these two camps here, kind of trying to make a symbol to fight each other. So there's not really any symbol in the middle that is political enough for people that just don't want to be part of those politics. Then there you have the third and that I put here, which is the Hearts in Harmony flag, which is actually used probably by nobody, but it still appears on the Wikipedia. And I have never seen that. But it just tells you that some of the approaches, some of the proposals that have been done on a Taiwanese identity flag also fall into this thing of just making it look very Japanese, very suspiciously Japanese, which is the case of this one. It looks like the chrysanthemum from the Japanese passport, for example, the Japanese the Japanese national symbol, even though those are hearts. Then again, not only that, but if they don't go to the green color or the blue color and they try to get something in the middle, they do what this flag does, which is using a turquoise color, which then again, from this kind of has been a very common visual criticism of some of the creation of a Taiwanese flag, is that turquoise is not really much more visually appealing than red, white, and blue. That's the thing. It's just not such a strong visual element, and that tends to kind of compromise the success of many attempts to create a Taiwanese flag. Okay, micro still working. Okay, so this was just the Abian doll from the Chen Shui-bian family, which was part of his strategy to catch, to the thing is that, for example, there's a very famous research about this particular doll and the use of cuteness in Taiwanese politics, and how this doll in itself related to an. Okay, let me get back to why I'm gonna use the doll to refer to here. The thing is that because there's no a unitary symbol, because there's no a symbol that could unify Taiwanese people apolitically, and what I think, what this is more like a point an argument that I tried to defend, is that I feel that cuteness in itself, as a symbol that is continuously shifting and has many ways of expressing, is becoming a national symbol in itself, a kind of shape-shifting national symbol. And since the lack of patriotic and of a national symbol and leaves a huge gap in Taiwanese identity, and also in the creation of a Taiwanese symbol, you have the corporations and both the corporations that use that strategy and also the public institutions that sometimes do not want to, are reticent to use the son of the Republic of China. You have these two camps and pushing for an identity that is mostly based on consumerism. So this is how consumerism and especially the cute consumerism becomes kind of a national symbol in Taiwan. And you can see, and I perceive the Chen Shui-bian doll to be an expression of that in itself. The research, I don't remember his name now. I think he's Chen. Chen, no, I don't. I mean, Chen as in the name of the researcher. No, it's Chuang. Okay, it's Chuang. Chuang relates the use of the avian doll to a kind of a very specific field, a very specific camp of Taiwanese politics that are more pro relations with the United States. So this is how, in the lack of a national symbol that the Green Party in Taiwan could use as a form of expression of Taiwanese-ness, and this very specific camp, this very pro-US camp, used the doll in itself, the cute doll of Chen Shui-bian, as a national symbol of a political spectrum. So this is just kind of almost a 20 years old example already, right? So this is expresses how cuteness is so pervasive, is so present in Taiwan, and is perceived as such a natural thing here, that why not dealing with it? Why not thinking of it as the only item, as the only aesthetic that can actually unify sometimes people? Because the thing with cuteness in Taiwan is that it goes almost from any political spectrum and also from almost any age range. There are some camps that not really fancy these cute designs, especially which tends to be the blue side and more like the old people. But still, you have here examples of how every political party uses the strategy of cuteness. So this is how cuteness becomes a kind of a patriotic cuteness, and I want to push the argument that cuteness is just the way that Taiwanese tend to manifest a Taiwanese identity, a kind of a subtle patriotism towards Taiwan, even if they are apathetic to it. It's kind of the only grasp of something local that they can get, the way they can get a hold or something that has been born out of Taiwan, a kind of an aesthetic and institution, an institution of aesthetics that has been and that is getting a Taiwanese flavor to it, and how this kind of very dynamic way of tackling cuteness becomes a form of nationalism. Oh well, I brought here some more examples, but you probably have seen this. This is just Taiwan and her campaign of using her cat as a form of political campaign, as a giant poster on a building. I think it was, and they set the measures in feet. I don't remember now, but it's just a huge poster in the middle of the city with her cat, just expressing actually this. I relate this very much to, again, kind of a expression of sajiao, kind of an expression of and being kind of a rebel, giving a kind of a person that kind of needs to catch attention. And we are this way. I'm a woman in my 60s and I don't have children. I only have my cats, and you'll deal with it. And I'm going for presidency, right? But not only her, also the other camp does that. So you have here Han Kuo-yu that also has its own cute version. So you see, it goes from just every political spectrum, especially Han Kuo-yu, who was one of the strongest rivals. It was on the presidential run. Was one of the strongest rivals of Tsai Ing-wen ever, and also employed this tactic. And you can see now, for example, Han Kuo-yu is being used as a meme on the Taiwanese internet. And what's more successful than being used as a meme? This leads again to how cuteness is used corporatively in Taiwan as a means of catching the attention on urgent matters. And this has been the case of the military, of the white papers of the Ministry of Defense of Taiwan since 2011, if I'm not wrong, when they started to do manga versions of their white papers on every year's defense. And the best part about this is that they have recurring characters. So for example, I'm not very good at military affairs, so I guess this is just a spokesperson. I don't guess she's a general. I'm not sure for that. I'm not sure about that. I don't guess she's got her name here, right? No, she doesn't have her name here. But and the thing is that this female character, this female military office woman, is a recurring character. And the best part about it is that since they get different artists, the style keeps the style keeps evolving, and it starts imitating the Japanese manga style, but more and more progressively, as Taiwan in itself also, some people don't want to be Japan anymore and don't want to like be obsessed with Japan that much anymore. You get your own style of Taiwanese manhwa style, right? And that's kind of a very very interesting and very how to say, shocking perception on how Taiwan is getting its own identity through the creation of its visuality of its institutions, instead of going directly from top down. So I see it more as like a middle down process, in the sense that different institutions working separately try to get into this game of using aesthetics of cuteness and manga and Riben Donghua, or sometimes the Korean aegyo to kind of express Taiwanese-ness in itself. Another reason related to identity, because like nobody, absolutely nothing gets saved from being cute in Taiwan, and that's kind of a very important point. So you see, Taiwan is one of the countries, just as most of East Asia, one of the countries with the highest religious diversity. And not only that, it's also very religious in itself, because it follows what you might know, the folk culture, the folk religion, which is not, compared to Western religions, it's not, how to say, it's not so strict, not strict, in the sense that it's more of a practical religion, a kind of more of a cultural religion in itself. So in this sense, when they ask people, what religion do you practice, that's why you get on the bar graphs, you get a very high bar of people practicing folk religion. And of course, if cuteness has been already used everywhere as expression of Taiwanese-ness, why not applying it again to what is more Taiwanese than the religions that the Taiwanese people practice? It tends to be more related to Buddhism and Taoism and the folk religion, but it's everywhere. Also, Christianity also digs into this, although a bit less perhaps. So here you have some examples of how cuteness and kawaii-ness is being Taiwanized. So you get the example of Matsu, and I forgot again the temple where this was. Ding'an, could it be? I don't remember now. And this is Tudigon from my neighborhood. I go down and I see this every day on the street, and which just tells you, do not dump your garbage here. And this another one, which I guess is actually Tudigon again, I'm not sure, which I found around Yonghe, and that tells you gods are watching you. Do not be a dirty man. Do not dump your trash here. So this is how I argue that kawaii, that cuteness, is kind of a shape-shifting national symbol for Taiwan, because and in all of these instances, you could make all these cultural symbols be related to the sun of the Republic of China. But since it's a symbol that is so controversial and not everybody feels represented by it, what you do is this kind of variator of diversified of a shape-shifting symbol that adapts to any kind of thing. And actually the thing is that even if they have different styles, the perception, the way it affects the person that abuses it is very similar, right? So when I take the photos, I see, oh, this Turigon here, even if it's not a cartoon, it's cute, right? It's just in kind of a similar lane of cute as this Matsu here. It's kind of a similar weight of cute as this funny face of this man here. So cute has so many different expressions, but at the same time, it's a concept in itself that is practiced very consistently in Taiwanese institutions, in Taiwanese culture in itself. This is another example which many people that have been in Taiwan already know. This is a kind of another manga version of a cartoon version, whichever. It's very manga based of Matsu, the one that is being used in cementing. This Matsu in particularly has also been transformed into an object of kind of of religious fervor, because Matsu is a goddess of the sea. Taiwan is an island nation, so goddess of the sea. As a goddess of the sea, Matsu is a very, very, very important figure in Taiwanese religions, in Taiwanese folk religion. So what you get here is that how first you have the traditional form of expression of religion in Taiwan that was imported from China. It tended to be more sacred, it tended to be more serious. If you remember how usually Matsu looks, it has a very serious face that is painted in that dark greenish color that is very common in representations of gods in Chinese culture in general, in the sense of Zhonghua. But what Taiwan does to make it Taiwanized, to claim Matsu as a Taiwanese element in itself, is using the cartoon version that has been made of it and transforming it into an object in itself that is going to be displayed to everybody. And this is how many academic research relates that how cuteness is kind of a very transnational thing in how popular culture, how Taiwanese identity expressed through cuteness is a very transnational thing in Taiwan. So you see the kind of eyes that they are being used here, and are based on the Japanese style of manga in itself, right? But Taiwan, as many other countries in Southeast Asia, in East Asia, before cuteness became pervasive in Japan, also had its own cuteness. The things that now it's kind of absorbing even more of the Japanese style of cuteness. At the same time, that is using part of the remaining elements of how they used to do cartoons and drawings before, and chibis and mini versions of anything of everything before. Sometimes when I go around the streets, I keep seeing these old versions of for example, workers. Like you have workers like cartoons of workers telling you, oh, sorry, pardon for the inconvenience, we are doing reparations here. And, has kind of a more 90s style. So what is happening now is that you see it's becoming a bit more Japanized, but at the same time, it's adding those elements from what used to be the expression of Taiwaneseness in itself before that. So it's kind of a retrocession, but a kind of a feedback, a continuous feedback to create its own Taiwanese style to itself. Okay, so this is more examples of identity as in the use of corporative identity, of visual identity of many departments in Taiwan and ministries, and this now relates again to how I associate cuteness to as a shape-shifting symbol in itself, right? In the sense that sometimes the fire department of New Taipei City uses more this rhinoceros as its logo than it uses the actual symbol that it has, which is the bird, kind of the phoenix with the Republic of China sound. So kind of very subtly they avoid to use those symbols that represent the dictatorial and the imposed background of Taiwan, and in favor of this dynamic, cute symbols that everybody feels tends to be reconforted around. Very similar to the use of a very soft image of the police. Taiwan tends to be a very safe place overall, perhaps not in traffic, but so the police here, as in many other East Asian countries, does not have that kind of very threatening aura going around them. It tends to be more of a figure of no, I won't say they laugh about them, but they do not tend to be a very imposing figure. So what they have done in Taiwan, and also in other places, is preferring to give a softer image to make people trust them. Instead of people trusting them because of their force, they prefer to trust them because of their cuteness in itself. And the thing is that these two, this one on the right, the male police officer, and the police officer, the woman police officer, are two different kind of show an evolution of a style. This one is more of a, I would say, kind of a 2018 thing, and this is a very, very contemporary one. This is just from this year, so it's the same, not the same policeman, but you also have a female version, but it's the same concept of a policeman, but it gets more and more chibi. It gets more and more smaller the more time passes. So yeah, some final remarks. This is when we get actually to the sad part of this. When we get to the most and kind of how to say this, the most and tearsome part of it. So we've gone through 3 ways of explaining cuteness in Taiwan. The first is it's a matter of attitude, 撒娇. This matter of being very and acting like a spoiled child that wants to get everybody's attention, and it's very passive aggressive. Something does not go its way, it just, for example, just gives a very passive aggressive response. And actually many, not only one, but like about 3 or 4 research pieces I found completely just call Taiwan a Sajiao island. It's kind of a matter of national attitude in itself, and the expression of this national attitude tends to be related to cuteness. But also, that cuteness in itself could not survive just by being a matter of institutionalism, right? The reason why it survives so well is because it's also a matter of capitalism, right? It's a matter that the capitalism gives its kind of the financial backing to this whole process of cuteness, and this is just kind of the most logical way of making cuteness survive. So it's kind of a feedback between the public institutions using cuteness and also sometimes selling merchandising related to that, to cute things, and the private industries and continuing using that mechanism as a way of attracting people. And also how these two can blend together in itself, and how sometimes, and this is very, very important in a very, very interesting point, how even the public transport sometimes associates with private companies and symbols of cuteness from private companies, and to have a bigger presence among the Taiwanese population and make them perceive them as Taiwanized. This happens, for example, with the current Taipei Metro and Taipei Metro advertisements, which are based on I don't remember the dog now, but the dog is from, just as if you were using Hello Kitty, as the public metro from your country was using Hello Kitty. So kind of a similar thing with a very specific dog. But the thing is, I make a connection here between cuteness in itself and the fact of that Taiwan likes to be very cute with a war strategy. We've seen in these months how making people like you and having a likable image and around the world can become one of your most important tools, especially in the context of possible war conflict, right? So Taiwan is very aware of that, but at the same time it's not very vocal about that. The thing with cuteness in itself is that it's a strategy, it's an attitude practiced by almost everybody here, and that works kind of as a war strategy. Why? Because the objective of this is kind of giving people and feeling feeling pity about Taiwan, and how this place where people are so cute and like so many cute things and work so hard to make everything so soft, and are being attacked by the big evil neighbor that is next to them, right? So it kind of works as blackmailing sometimes. It works, and this is something I'm grateful for somebody that pointed yesterday in live stream, as a survival mechanism, in the sense that cuteness is kind of used as they exploit cuteness to make people feel pity of them, or how this cute place could be attacked and could be reduced to ashes, and how because of that you need to pay attention to us. In this sense, actually, cuteness has a very sad size, a very saddening size to it. Is how Taiwan in itself, and the Taiwanese population, the Taiwanese culture, and feels threatened, feels fear. It's fearful of its neighbor, and so it's kind of giving a desperate call for help and trying to get everybody's attention using cute things, using the Hello Kitty airplane, making me do this video about cuteness and how it's so present everywhere, and so you cannot. It tries to give you this sensation of shame, of abandoning something that is so endearing and so tender and so cute in itself and so kawaii. So at the same time that it works as as national identity, it works as a war strategy of a country that is feeling fear in itself. And I have to thank again for the person that commented this on the video, because I was not really related this with a survival mechanism, but it is a survival mechanism. So you can see, as a final example, I brought here and this kind of it was a patch. I'm not sure. I think it was a patch that people received and after being vaccinated during June or May of last year, when Taiwan was not really well prepared with vaccines. I could not receive the vaccines, and so Lithuania, Japan, and the United States and sent vaccines to Taiwan, which Taiwan it kind of was one of the moments of highest desperation in Taiwan, of highest vulnerability for Taiwan in itself, because of this kind of hidden invisible enemy, which is the disease. So people noticed that when they got out of receiving the jab, they would get this kind of patch which had cute versions of each country's national animal. So even if these countries don't have official diplomatic recognition, do not exercise official diplomatic recognition of Taiwan, they are kind of closely allied to him, and Taiwan kind of wants to exploit these sudden relations that were not sudden, especially Lithuania is a bit more sudden, but these very positive relations that have been flowering, that have been blooming among these countries in East Asia and in Central Europe especially. And using this cute symbol of reminding people from these countries and trying to get their attention, Taiwan, who we have just give them vaccines now, has made a cute version of our national animal. So this way it gets, for example, into Lithuanian news, it gets into Japanese news. So it's kind of, that's how you realize that's how it kind of works, as a very subtle, very long-term planning of creating a positive, acute image of Taiwan, so people feel pity about it, feel anger and pity about it being attacked or being threatened. All right, and so this is all the presentation, and this is what I kind of presented yesterday in Spanish. Sadly, the quality was not so good. If anybody wants to debate me, for sure you can debate me, because I try to research, but sometimes there are many missing points. And I can speak Chinese, but it has its limitations, especially academic Chinese. It's not as easy as normal Chinese. But I'm very, very into this theme, and I think it has a lot of future if we kind of start to categorize and the different ways of expressing cuteness in Taiwan, and especially how it's not only a matter of consumerism, but how also the fact that it was so successful as a capitalist and exploit of attention call, and evolved into a war mechanism in itself. So thank you so much if you have listened to this, and I sure hope your comments and do follow the kawaii account if you want to see more cute things. Actually, there's just so much content that I don't even get enough time to post all that I find. But if you have any proposal, by sure send it to me. My DMs, my direct messages are open, so you can send me any cute image you find in Taiwan if you're living in Taiwan, or if you find it in the internet as well, and I will try to publish it. Because the thing is that it's just this has comma here. This should be a lowercase, okay, lowercase. And actually, let me correct that now since I'm here. Lowercase, lowercase, lowercase. So yeah, just send me your, if you're in Taiwan and find anything that is super cute and you think that it kind of looks weird, the usage they're making out of it. For example, you know, today I found a kind of a cute version of an old man in a poster saying, be aware of the symptoms of hepatitis C, for example. If you find anything like that, send it to me. So we try to collect as much as possible of this, especially because I'm very interested in making further research about this. And, you know, I kind of need more and more content so I can kind of see the patterns. I kind of keep and defining, polishing the patterns that I see in this use of cultural cuteness in Taiwan. So, and finally, just gonna let you with this slide that has the readings and the kind of the base readings that you could do for if you are interested in this theme. All right. So thank you so much for listening, and I just go by the channel. Oh, of course, I had it here too. And if you are interested in talking this further with me, and you can contact me here in kawaii. It's a Twitter account, okay? So nice to very. I'm so pleased to have the chance to be able to talk about this in English. And I was so happy yesterday of making people kind of understand further how this is not only a matter of capitalism in Taiwan, not a matter of only consumerism, but how it has so many layers going on as well, right? So thank you so much again, and I hope to see you soon. I don't think I'm gonna do this many videos because it takes time. This is because I already know the theme well, that I'm able to do it very just like straightforwardly, but doing videos just requires so much time. But thank you again, and see you. Bye bye.